Good evening, Chicago. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. You guys hear me? All right. I'm getting the thumbs up from Kit. Hey, everybody. So let me start over again. Welcome to another Tuesday night edition of Chicago Corner. I'm your host, Jerry Vasilatos. Thank you for joining us as we cover close to midweek news that are dominating the Chicago news cycle this week. Before I continue, I want to make a quick clarification and retraction and apology for my meltdown during last Friday night's show. And I also want to assure our audience that the show block that we had at the end of last Friday night show had nothing to do with anything anybody was talking about in the chat regarding my conversation and the topic of pain management as it relates to the opioid crisis. I got a lot of apologies in the comments, and nobody in the live chat did anything wrong. Please don't feel that way. You should always feel free to speak your minds. Unfortunately, it was a copyright strike from Facebook, of all places. It wasn't even something that originated on YouTube. I am now simulcasting the show on Twitter as well as Facebook, and I guess the pizza porn that was playing at the end of the broadcast, as well intentioned as it was, triggered something with the content owners over at Facebook. And YouTube got a notification that we were violating their copyright. So we're going to be more careful here that doesn't happen again, so it does not interrupt our conversation, our topics, or most importantly, the live chat, because although I tried and Daniel tried to clean up the end of the rebroadcast from last Friday, our editing, I guess, ended up screwing up something in the YouTube editing panel. And all the comments have been restored. Like the end of the show is like stuttering and freezing up. And it's just unfortunate because I think we had a really good show last week all around. But please, again, anybody in the live chat that was apologizing, this had nothing to do with anything anybody was talking about there. Please continue to feel free within reason and respect to share whatever opinions you have there. And we will continue doing what we do on this end and just being a little bit more careful about what we bring in to our live stream so that kind of nonsense doesn't happen again with people flipping out over copyrights for something as innocuous as pizza prep here in Chicago. Anyway, without further ado, I would love to introduce my co-host for the evening, Mr. Kit Cabello. Kit, thanks for joining me this evening.
As always, it's great to be here on Chicago Corner. This is a channel that's speaking truth to power. And obviously, Jerry, I think you've done a fantastic job in speaking on behalf of my colleague, Daniel Lupker, and myself, that you've been doing a good job representing and running Chicago Corner. We asked you to run it in a professional manner, and you have.
Thank you. Well, that's questionable. I got to try to like keep a little bit of a lid on my rage, but I'm not proud of having melted down last week.
It's frustrating. Join the club. Join the club. I'm the world heavyweight champion at yelling at YouTube. Okay, so you got a long way to go to catch up to me. So there we go. So that's what we're going to do. I also wanted to say, as this channel is growing, Chicago Corner is very close to becoming a contributing member to the 99 Perspective Studio, just like how Hardlens is doing, and so many other channels that we have at 99 Perspective. So again, 99 Perspective Studios. We're proud of Chicago Corner, and Daniel and I are very proud of the work that you're doing. We asked you to be a captain of Chicago Corner because Daniel and I don't have a lot of time. You're doing the great job, and look, it's going in a good path. So I think our audience, I'm looking at the live stream chat, they're telling you don't give up, don't apologize, because you've got nothing to apologize for. But that's why we have you on board, because you're authentic, you give a damn, and you're true to who you are. And that's why we're so glad that you reached out to us and all the people. When we, little bit of a little side note, when we were looking at your resume and we called up everyone that you put as a reference, all of them all came back saying, this is the guy. This is a great person, 100% through and through. I was humbled by it, and now I'm working with you. I'm glad to be a co-host for Chicago Corner. So, Jerry, you got nothing to apologize for, but I think the audience is grateful that you're the good captain of Chicago.
Well, thanks.
Corner.
We've got a great crew here too. It's not just me. Our moderators. We've got Ed. We've got other co-hosts like Lainey and Daniel and yourself, who always join me here to talk about stuff. So I'm really grateful. I've got a good support team here,
right?
To go over what we're seeing happening in the Chicago news cycle every week.
Right. And one other thing, too, I mentioned this on Hard Lens Media, but Daniel will not be in the studio or on the shows for the next week. He's right now taking care of somebody. And look, he'll be back next week. So until then, everyone, it's just going to be Kent and Jerry run Chicago Corner for a little bit.
Yeah. If you need any help over at the national show to join in some night, let me know. I can stream from over here. But let's not take too long getting into our night stories. This is a story that started over the weekend and is continually evolving. Once again, I'm going to have to put a lid on my outrage because there are no words for any child, let alone an 8-year-old innocent kid getting murdered here in Chicago. So this happened over the weekend. There were 2 stories I was going to be reading from. I'm going to start with the most updated story by Madison Saavedra regarding comments by Melissa's mother. And then I'll go into what happened over the weekend as far as the reward that's being offered and what the police are doing to find her killers, as well as, I don't know, Kit, prevent more of this from happening. I feel like America's done. Shut off the lights on your way out. It's just, we talked about this last week also that, we don't want to be too cynical, but I'm getting overwhelmed by this stuff. I remember who I talked about it with. I was approached by a filmmaker here in Chicago I really hope to have on the show. And she is producing and directing a documentary on the survivors of gang violence, families, loved ones, dealing with their grief, dealing with their loss. And I'm hoping I'm going to be able to come on and edit the rest of this project for her. But as we were corresponding, as this violence relates to gangs, I said to her, the 48-minute segment that she shared with me to get a flavor of the show, I said, this is overwhelming. And you are so good at giving voices to these people, these family members who have suffered grief and loss, as Melissa Ortega's mother is now. But beyond just focusing on the grief and loss, what can be done? What's going to change? Luckily, the filmmaker, I don't want to say too much about it because I'm hoping to have her on the show as a special guest, but she said, other episodes are going to be dealing with what are the socioeconomic, political situations that feed into the escalation and the dominance of gangs on the streets, advocates for kids who are falling into these gangs. This particular documentary is being produced with the support and I believe interviews with Father Flager down at St. Sabina's Parish. And what can we do? And as I look at this story, I'm like, what can we do? Let me get into the story and we can talk about it more on the back end. So Melissa Ortega's mother wants 8-year-old's killer brought to justice. You took my reason for living. In an interview with Univision's Despierta America, Mother Araceli Llanos tells her daughter's killer she forgives them but wants them held responsible. And this is the little girl that was killed. In a devastating interview, the mother of slain 8-year-old Melissa Ortega called for the person who killed her daughter last week in Little Village to be brought to justice. You took my entire life, Araceli Llanos said in Spanish during an interview with Univision's Despierta America Monday morning. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Art, you're in the live chat. Did I pronounce that correctly? You took the most beautiful thing. You took my reason for living. You have taken dreams from a marvelous girl. From my heart, I'm telling you, I forgive you because I know that one day, with the help of God, I will find peace, but I know that you will not live in peace for the rest of your days, Llanos said. Melissa was shot and killed by what else, Kit? A stray bullet. It's amazing how all these fucking stray bullets constantly are hitting targets, innocent targets. They get shot through windows and find a target. Someone's walking. I mean, I wouldn't know at a target range aiming at something how to hit a target properly, right? But these stray bullets are taking all these young lives left and right in these neighborhoods. Near the intersection of West 26th Street and South Pulaski Road in Little Village. Police said she was not the intended target, and the shooting was likely related to an ongoing, what else? Gang conflict. Police said Monday they have very strong leads in the case. In response to the shooting, police are increasing patrols in the neighborhood to be highly visible and offering up to a $15,000 reward for tips that lead to an arrest or conviction. Look, $15,000 isn't like a drop in the bucket for what this little girl, the value of this little girl's life. But hopefully, if it leads to some tips to bring these animals to justice and accountability, someone might step forward. Liano said her daughter Melissa was beautiful, funny, quiet, and social. She said she wants justice not only for Melissa, but for others who've lost their lives to gun violence. I'm only asking for justice because this is a great pain, Liano said. I'm asking that you catch the person responsible. Liano said she and her daughter came to Chicago with a dream. The two of them just moved to Little Village from Mexico in August. But unfortunately, my daughter was taken from my arms, she said. The earlier story that was released this weekend after the murder, that's what I'm calling it. Police Superintendent David Brown said investigators have very strong leads in the case. Neighbors are also turning surveillance videos over to police, Alderman Michael Rodriguez said. Now, police are increasing patrols in Little Village and are offering a $15,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest in the weekend murder of 8-year-old Melissa Ortega on 26th Street. Police Superintendent David Brown said in a press conference Monday, investigators have very strong leads in the case but declined to give specific details. The police department is encouraging anyone with information on the 8-year-old shooter to submit tips through an anonymous tip line by calling 833-408-0069. This is linked in our show notes below. I don't know that people will be able to see it here, but I'm going to highlight it on screen. Where is it? There we go. It's highlighted in the blue. Brown also said police are increasing patrols in the area to be highly visible, but it's unclear exactly how many more police patrols were active on the 26th Street Monday. Alderman Mike Rodriguez, whose ward covers Little Village, said neighbors are cooperating with police and have handed over surveillance videos to help the investigation. Rodriguez said he was told police had obtained video footage and were following promising leads. Melissa, a student at Emiliano Zapata Academy in the neighborhood, was shot and killed Saturday afternoon while she walked down the street with her mother on the 4,000th block of West 26th Street. Police said Melissa and her mother were not the intended targets of the shooting, which was likely related to an ongoing gang conflict, as we said earlier. Melissa and her mother had just immigrated to Chicago from Mexico in August. A GoFundMe has raised nearly $57,000 as of Monday night, well over the $20,000 goal to pay for a funeral and bring her body back to her hometown in Mexico. In a statement released through New Life Centers, the Ortega family asked for privacy. Community organizers gathered Monday at the intersection of 26th and Pulaski Road where Melissa was shot to demand more attention and resources in the neighborhood to prevent violent crime. Baltazar Enriquez, president of the Little Village Community Council, called on officials to help bring more mental health clinics and services to Little Village to heal trauma in the neighborhood. Maybe those mental health clinics still being open and resources directed to the communities would prevent this shit from happening. Youth centers, jobs, opportunities. Stop making downtown a fucking tourist mecca with the TIF funds. Our neighborhood is so traumatized we can't even deal with one death when another death happens, Enriquez said. Our children are dying, and this is just the beginning of the year. Maribel Medina, a Little Village parent and volunteer with the group, said she has to drive to suburban Oak Park or LaGrange to get mental health services for her children. I have the resources to do that, but a lot of community members don't have the resources to do that, Medina said. We need this desperately here. Officials at Emiliano Zapata Academy said they're working with a crisis management team from Chicago Public Schools. those winners, Pedro Martinez, we're going to get to that weasel later, to assist school counselors, social workers, and psychologists with student support, according to a message on the school's website. The school also said it's working with a safety team to ensure students are safe during entry and dismissal. So that's the full content of both articles as reported by Block Club Chicago. And let me also quickly give credit. That was from Madison Saavedra at Block Club Chicago with that coverage.
All right.
What do we say? What can you say?
What can you say for a lot?
It's like struggling to put it together.
It is difficult to really come up with anything to even say. We've said this before. How do you stop the violence? We got to start investing into our neighborhoods. We got to start making sure there's economic opportunities. We got to start funding our schools, building community centers, and actually doing something to end this war on drugs. You want to stop the cartels. You want to stop the gang bangers. You want to stop the mafias and all the other crime organizations and syndicates all across this country. Take away the incentives. End the war on drugs. Just like how the same thing with prohibition. You end it. You hurt them at their bottom line, not by continue on with more police presence or putting more people behind bars. You actually take away the income. End it. End it. That's how you hurt them. That's how you hurt the cartels. That's how you hurt all of them. Then they got nothing left. You want to stop the bad guys, you hit them where it hurts. But obviously, because we have a system that favors the prison industrial complex, loves the war on drugs, it's going to continue on and on. The violence is going to get worse and worse. And there are so many ways in which we can end this. But we lack the political will by our politicians to do anything about it. And their only resort is build more prisons, fund more police. But see, the police will get corrupt too. So this is all into corruption. This all goes right back to what we talked about. And sadly, if we're going to go ahead, Jerry.
Their other solution, Kit, is going to be civil asset forfeiture from the gang leaders, right? Not only has Jamal Green come out and said how ridiculous that is, because obviously they're going to be seizing assets from people that could wrongly be in these gang identity lists. But is it really going to stop the violence from happening?
No.
Even John Catanzara, the Fraternal Order of Police, who Jamal Green said even a broken clock is right twice a day, has come out against the civil asset forfeiture program because it's not going to do anything. It's not even a Band-Aid. It's a pandering red meat to make it look like the city's doing something when everything you just said about investment in the communities is what is needed. Again, reactive solutions, not proactive solutions.
And again, this is from our wonderful Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She's not going to do a damn thing. And by the way, again, I just can't reiterate this enough on social media. If you find yourself agreeing with Lightfoot, stop for a second and say, hey, wait a minute. That's Mayor Lightfoot I'm agreeing with. Obviously, there's some BS because I'm really getting sick and tired of, again, seeing just this mayor of ours constantly get away with her inept corruption. And she knows what she's doing, too. She's not being stupid on purpose. She knows
she's shameless. She's shameless. She's operating under light of day, playing both sides of the fence with the police and with the public. The police can't stand her, even though she's shoveling money to them. The public can't stand her
either. No.
Yeah, because they know that she just blows with the wind. She blows with the wind politically. All I've been getting in my emails, like for the past couple of weeks from her, are her fundraising emails because she wants to run again. It's like, what the fuck are you doing to earn our votes? Besides, look, these are communities populated by people of color, her people. Going back to the conversation I had with the director regarding the survivors dealing with grief and loss of gang violence in their communities, it was all black faces. That's all we see. And as I was watching that 48-minute segment, to get a sense of the project, I was just overwhelmed, Kid. I'm just like, we have a woman who's the mayor. She's a lesbian. She's a person of color. She ran on progressive ideals. She was going to be the reformer. Most people who voted for her, held their nose hoping that she was actually going to stand for what she said she would and deliver.
Myself included.
Myself too. I voted for her also. And as I listened to the stories that came out of this director's work, all these mothers, all these young siblings talking about their lost older siblings who'd been lost to gang violence, it's a different world in these neighborhoods. Okay. This is, I think, the most segregated city in the world.
Hyper segregated
because of the gang violence, because we have abandoned, not we, we're trying to get attention, eyes on it, but our leaders have abandoned these neighborhoods because they have priorities elsewhere that have nothing to do with anything other than revenue generation and pretending that they give a shit, while you drive through some of these neighborhoods and it's like you're in another country in the demilitarized zone. I've driven, I mean, I don't go out of my way to drive down there, but I'm not afraid, and I have. And the first instances that I would drive through some South and West Side neighborhoods, I think it was in 2015 when I was shooting video for a mayoral candidate's campaign. It wasn't completely eye-opening because I'd been down there before, but I was reminded. I'm like, how the fuck does Chicago go downtown? Look at the wealth, look at the beauty there. Allow this to fester like an open sore without giving a shit about the young people and the struggling parents. Not all parents are perfect. They like to blame the fatherless families. You know what? That's horse shit. You don't invest the money in the community to give resources or do whatever you have to do. Whether they got fathers or not is moot. They don't have the boots to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. That leads to bad choices by young people deciding to fall into gangs because that's their family. That's their protection. That's where they feel that they can earn a living because the rest of the world has abandoned them, their neighborhoods, their families, their communities.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Gabo Hernandez brings up a comment, and I would be more than happy to answer it for her.
Which one was it? Let me go back.
Gabo Hernandez says, didn't Lightfoot want to be answering questions to reporters that were of color?
Right.
The answer is yes. So let me explain this real quick because I know, Jerry, this is the show. We got to move on with other segments. But so, Gabo, if you're listening, you're still here with us, let me explain what's going on. So Lightfoot did that. Here's a situation with the media here in Chicago. It's being gutted. It's being gutted through and through to where, again, there are reporters, but there's not enough to really be hired. And a lot of those reporters of color that she wants to be asked softball questions. But when Jamal Green actually had some activists who were journalists or getting their journalist degree asking Lightfoot tough questions, she was ignoring them. By the way, this is the same Mayor Lightfoot who said she wants to see more journalists of color. Well, then, hey, Mayor Lightfoot, what you should do to get maybe more people of color, more representation in media, because there is a lack of representation in media, invest into the schools on the South and West Side, invest in communication, invest in radio programs to get young people on the South and West Side involved. Use the TIF funds to start funding the schools so that maybe more young people get involved in the internet, radio, television, and actually do what you want to see. Second of all, Mayor Lightfoot, I know the city of Chicago actually has a ban on some journalists too, especially on some prominent South and West Side media outlets too. Lightfoot, you have the power to do all that, but you won't do it. She just said something just to pander to identity politics.
They've invited Jamal Green to the table a couple times based on the fact he is a real thorn in their ass, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they bring him to the table. They dick him around, right? They act like they're interested. They act like they want to help. But what they're really trying to do is muzzle him. And when he gets too loud and brings his protesters to City Hall because they're not being honest actors in speaking with him, in brainstorming with him solutions, what does she do? She has him arrested, and he walked from. You know, that whole rap was bullshit. It was he was a civil. It was as justified a civil rights protest as, you know, what we've seen in the 60s and 70s when Jamal and his group were on the 5th floor over at City Hall several months back, righteously angry as a result of some other shootings that had happened, and the city's just absolute disconnect from what people like Jamal and people like you or me or anybody, you know, look, better people than us have suggested with how to solve these problems. It comes down to economics. It comes down to paying real attention and doing more in these communities to offer other directions for these kids who are making the wrong choices. Now, one thing that struck me about reporting about this little girl tonight was that, you know, when I came on last year around this time, what were we talking about? Adam Toledo. Now, Adam Toledo he wasn't perfect and he wasn't completely innocent, but he wasn't a danger and he wasn't a threat. And Adam was an example of one of these kids, young, don't have the right opportunities, making the wrong choices, getting mixed up with the wrong people, tossed the gun as the officer told him during that chase and still lost his life. I found it's an interesting bookends from last February through the end of January here going into February. These two particular losses, these shootings, these horrible losses to the mothers and the families, and which reflects the crisis that's going on in these communities.
Great 100%.
Let me quickly go into our live chat. Thank you everybody for participating and sharing your thoughts. Kate says, this is part of the plan to push the working poor to the suburbs, so the suburban tax money will go to services for the working poor. Rotten hell, city and Cook County government. True Democracy Now! Shares, the reason for this continuing violence is always directly related to the voting decisions we make. Yes. And I want to mention, please visit truedemocracynow.org. They are here regularly in our live chat sharing important points that we all need to take to heart. We need to learn how to elect lawmakers that actually work to meet the needs of our citizens. Yes. Why aren't we? Not enough people are coming out to vote because too many people are cynical and just completely have completely lost faith in the system. I was one of those on the national level last presidential election cycle, but I did vote here in Chicago. But when we find out that we had, I think it was a 30% voter turnout last election, Kit, speaking to True Democracy's point, this is why we're not getting the lawmakers we need and why we're constantly holding our noses to vote for the least of all evils. The reason for this continuing, that was a double comment there. Kathy Powers, yes, it comes down to political will. Kate says Adam Toledo has zero chance. There are photos of him flashing Latin King signs as a toddler. Yeah. And why? How? Because he was wrong. He was born in the wrong neighborhood. He was born in a neighborhood where there aren't any. Just doesn't seem that there are any ways out. It's like humanity is in a war with cops that's still pretending not to be intentional. That comes from Salgado. Thank you. Finally, Kathy Powers, what democracy? We need better choices. All right, let me go into our next story. And Kit, I always love having you on as a co-host of the show, but I know that this touches a special nerve with you as it relates to the environmental racism we're constantly sharing stories about, reporting on as the news comes to our attention. This is from Amy Quinn, Amy Kin, Q-I-N. I don't know if it's Quinn or Kin, but however it's pronounced, she's done some good work over at Block Club Chicago, and she is reporting on a new map that speaks to what you've brought up, Kit, and reported on, showing pollution near your kids' schools and confirms Latino neighborhoods are hit the hardest. Of course, the poor neighborhoods, the Southwest Side neighborhoods, like the one that this little girl Melissa was shot in. An interactive map published by researchers at UIC allows residents to find out what sources of pollution are near their schools, and homes. Let's bring some graphics up here. Dozens of semi-trucks pass back of the Yards College preparatory high school students as they walk home from school. A faint chemical smell emanating from the Wheatland Tube Company, an industrial pipe and tube manufacturer less than a block away, mixes in with the smell of diesel truck exhaust as students walk west on 47th Street past Western Avenue. It sort of resembles a sewer smell, and at times, I see smoke being emitted from the factory, Senior Humberto Castaneda said. The Southwest Side School sits in one of the most pollution-burdened areas of Chicago for children, according to the latest research in a 3-part study from the University of Chicago. Using publicly available data, researchers gave each of Chicago's 77 community areas a cumulative score based on how close local public schools are to pollution sources. The more K-8 students there are in a community area within a 1-mile radius of a pollution source, the higher the score. The first and second parts of the study, published in 2021, concluded CPS schools with majority Latino student populations were disproportionately burdened by pollution, meaning the neighborhoods they live in are, too. The third part of the study, published last week, is an interactive map to make the study's findings accessible to neighbors. It's the result of 6 months of input from community groups and policymakers. I paused just to bring up some alternate graphics people can look at while we're reading. Researchers and community leaders say prolonged exposure to air pollution isn't solely about public health, but also environmental justice. Polluters are unevenly situated throughout the city, in part because of its design. Many densely populated neighborhoods are in industrial corridors or surrounded by major roadways and because of municipal planning decisions. The study goes to further prove that the city is purposefully exacerbating environmental racism by continually allowing these industries to be placed in our communities, said Kim Wasserman, executive director of Little Village Environmental Justice Organization. And most notably, the burden is significant for school children. Across the United States, schools where the majority of students are people of color are more likely to be near pollution sources compared to majority white schools, according to the first national study on environmental justice and schools published in 2018. Chicago ranks as among the top 5 worst cities for air pollution near public schools, according to the national research. Back of the Yards, part of the new city community area, is roughly 70% Latino and 20% Black. It is also home to 6 of 8 rail hubs in the city and roughly 19 acres of brownfield sites, according to UIC researchers. UIC's earlier research showed schools in the area where Back of the Yards College Prep is located scored 16 times above the city average for their collective proximity to toxic facilities. The next highest scoring neighborhoods also are on the southwest side and have majority Latino students. The lower west side community area, which includes Pilsen, scored 9 times above the city average, and community area South Lawndale, which includes Little Village, scored 7 times higher. Studies have shown chronic exposure to air pollution can negatively impact children's brain function. I wonder if that's another contributor.
It is a contributor
with the kids in these communities, right?
We've seen this numerous times. Look, when we were in, this was a while back, when Heartlands Media, we did a 16-minute documentary video about the industrial facilities that are polluting Lake Michigan. One portion of the video that we unfortunately could not get set up, that footage is kind of lost now, had to deal with the fact that we were touring in a community that was built on top of a lead smelter factory. And this had, there was dangerous amounts of lead in the air, water, and soil, and it was causing not only physical ailments, but also causing mental health problems as well. These pollutants impact the human mind, human reasoning. These pollutants should not be anywhere near developing children, should not be anywhere near any communities or schools, but yet on the south and west side, they are near community centers, schools, homes, apartments. And this is, again, on the southwest side. And so what I want to say to my north side brothers and sisters, you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be upset if that was in your neighborhood. And a lot of these facilities were once on the north side and were moved to the south and west side neighborhoods. And I just want to say to my fellow north siders, just because you're way up there on the north side doesn't mean those pollutants on the south and west side won't get to you. They have gotten to you. They are there. They're already there.
That's how air operates. That's how fumes and clouds and toxic pollution functions. It floats. It goes where it's not supposed to.
Don't wait up. It'll get to you soon enough. Okay. No need to think that you're safe, because you ain't safe. And the same thing with those industrial facilities polluting, quote unquote, regulated toxic waste at the Lake Michigan. We're drinking that water, Northsiders, Southsiders, Westsiders. We're all drinking it. And I brought you in there too, Northsiders, because let's face it, this impacts us all. And I'm really, really upset at how, again, Mayor Lightfoot, who ran on this, we're going to build a strong environmental protection agency for the city of Chicago. No, the industrial racism, the environmental racism that we're seeing impacting all these communities is out there in the open. You have the Mad Asphalt plant. You have these recycle centers. You have all these industrial facilities that are polluting working class communities. And it's a two-pronged assault to lead to gentrification on the south and west side of Chicago.
The article goes on to share pollution burdens in some neighborhoods are at a record high for all residents, but the burden is significant for school children, and that's an alarming finding, said Michael Kaelis, a UIC associate professor and co-author of the study. On the dashboard, which you can find in this report that's linked below in our show notes on Google Docs, the article says on the dashboard, users can search an address I'm going to do this after the show's over with to check out my. I mean, I'm on the far north side. I know I'm still getting it, not as horribly as these poor families and kids down on the south and west sides. But users can search an address and toggle views on the map to see what types of pollution sources show up near them. The map shows how close an address is to toxic release inventory facilities or large-scale producers that generate hazardous chemicals above a certain regulatory threshold determined by an environmental protection agency. Brownfield sites or former industrial land the EPA determines are potentially contaminated. Asphalt plants, freight hubs. Users also can explore detailed information about the chemicals emitted at each facility, as well as create and download reports of certain areas. For example, people can see that in the 1 mile radius around back of the Yards College Prep, there are 9 other schools, as well as Wheatland, a toxic release inventory facility, a brownfield, a freight yard, and a construction company. Wheatland emits lead, according to UIC's map, which is a carcinogen. Chemicals from nearby industries produce toxins regulated by the Clean Air Act, like manganese, a metal used in steelmaking, and toluene, I've heard this word before. It's a bad chemical. Toluene, Toulene, which is added to gasoline used to produce benzene and used as a solvent, according to the map. I actually think that and benzene are what killed my grandfather, because he used to work in a dry cleaning, his own dry cleaning store, and all the my dad always tells me, he was breathing in the benzene and all this stuff. That's over time, it's going to kill you. It's going to cause respiratory issues that are going to kill you. Spokespeople for Wheatland did not immediately respond to a request for comment. This dashboard will enable people to enter their address and see what is around them, Calais said. That's important because there might be things they're not even aware of. Environmental racism at their front door. The research comes as residents, organizers, and officials are bringing increased attention to environmental injustices in communities of color. In October, a Pilsen metal scrapper was sued by the state for allegedly breaking air pollution laws. The city delayed, and this is what you talked about not too long ago, Kit. The city delayed a decision to grant an operating permit for a controversial southeast side metal scrapper last year after organizers staged a month-long hunger strike and recently postponed a decision on the permit again. I believe that's General Iron. Hilco's, I think it was, that was the protest from last year that there was the hunger strike. Hilco's Crawford coal plant implosion that left Little Village covered in dust in April of 2020 incited residents to advocate for more accountability and transparency. And there's a graphic up there of the implosion at the Crawford demolition site. But residents have fought sources of pollution near their homes for decades. We've been highlighting the issue of diesel trucks in our neighborhoods for some time, said Wasserman, whose organization was founded in 1994. People on the ground have been living with environmental racism at their front doors. Back of the Yards high school senior Adriana Elizalde started volunteering with the Sunrise Movement to fight climate change because of the pollution in her neighborhood. Where I go to school, there's factories everywhere, said Elizalde.
Oh, there's the Met Asphalt plant right there. Look at that lovely little piece of crap. So somebody in the chat is asking, what does racism have to do with environmental issues? Let me go ahead and explain this.
Please.
So here's the thing. We have a lot of city council members that are bought and paid for by a lot of these realtor and real estate outlets that want to basically buy out the South and West Side neighborhoods and gentrify them, thus displacing generations of families that have lived there. A lot of these neighborhoods are predominantly Latino or African American, and thus they're hit hard, or working class citizens. So thus, when you built these industrial facilities there, it's a two-pronged assault. One, you're causing some health problems, and two, who wants to live next to an industrial facility? People have no choice but to move away. And that's just one of the insidious ways gentrification happens on the South and West Side. And plus, again, you have a lot of city council members that really don't give a damn about the districts they represent. And at the same time, too, especially the city council members who are in the more affluent areas could really give a damn because, again, the same people who are running those industrial facilities on the Southwest Side also donate and live in the affluent areas of the city of Chicago.
They're pushing the problem into the neighborhoods that don't have the proper advocacy representing them because they are poor, underprivileged communities. It's as simple as that. The poor are not looked upon in our in our country, in our culture, Kit, as having any value as those who are rich and make the rules. That's to Eric's question, where the racism comes in, because it's a calculated decision. We're not going to allow these facilities to be in white communities. We're not going to allow them to be in affluent communities. We're going to push them close to the neighborhoods where people don't have a voice. And knowing what the south curve of Lake Michigan looks like, there is a lot of industrial land there off the lake. I'm not advocating for more pollution being pushed away from the residential communities, but you got to wonder, it's like there are options to keep this stuff farther away from the communities than they're doing right now. It seems that they're just kicking the can not far enough to protect people in these neighborhoods, or, as the overarching topic of pollution that eventually affects us all and is gonna toxify the air we breathe is dealt with in a realistic manner.
Agreed 100%.
Salgado shares, USA still thinks this tiny handful of upper middle class white liberals represents the values and norms of the USA. Yeah. Did you hear Jen Psaki the other day, Kit, when she was asked how people should deal with their disillusionment in Biden? It was
kickboxing and margaritas.
Kickboxing and margaritas. Liberal limousine wine mom response. And this speaks to exactly what Salgado just said. USA still thinks the tiny handful of upper middle class white liberals represents the values and norms of the USA. Salgado, they don't. They have also hijacked the term progressive, as they hijacked the term liberal. Liberal used to be a good word. They've hijacked that to present that's who they are. Now they've co-opted the word progressive and taken away what that meant as a branding. And I don't know what we are anymore, Kit. What are those of us who have been screaming from the rooftops, originally progressively, now that word's been co-opted, nobody trusts it. Are we the extreme leftists?
I would say we're independent at this point. So good luck, Democrats, trying to say, but then they'll probably find a way. Oreo, you have to have a plan. Whatever that plan is, it's all on you now, buddy. So but I want to mention this even further too, because recently came to my attention that Ice Cream Nancy's going to run again for re-election.
Yeah, that bitch. Ronald Reagan in a wig.
Yep.
I wish that she would choke on her ice cream.
There you go.
Yeah. Sasaki, isn't the P silent like in pneumonia? Yeah, it is. And she's got the same kind of deadly effect on people and how she stands up for things that are dangerous.
I'm going to quote my Uncle Bernie. Count trucks and eat ham. There we go.
Well, wrapping up this article, I want to kind of get to the end of it. Where I go to school, there's factories everywhere, said Elizalde, who grew up in Brighton Park. When I'm walking to school, on the way, there'll be a lot of cars and you can just smell the gas. That got me interested in environmental issues. Others, like Teresa Reyes McNamara, didn't find out about the pollution they lived near until something happened. McNamara lives 2 blocks away from your favorite, Matt Asphalt, 2055 West Pershing Road, a McKinley Park asphalt plant that has outraged neighbors for emitting chemical odors and asphalt dust. It moved to the neighborhood in 2018. When she found out about it in 2019, she went talking to neighbors to see if they'd heard about the plant. Last year, McNamara found out her husband, who was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, which several studies have found is linked to air pollution exposure. It's been one thing after another after his diagnosis, and he's been in and out of the hospital since then. Blood thinners, he lost sight in one eye, all within the last year and a half, said McNamara, an organizer with the Southwest Environmental Alliance. But we continue to fight, and we continue to tell people how important it is. Kit, when we were in high school learning history, didn't we believe all this shit was behind us with the Industrial Revolution? Did you ever imagine, as we advanced into the 21st century, all of these monsters of industry and business would return to continue the polluting and killing people for their bottom lines? Pelosi progressive vomit. Yeah, agreed.
I also want to mention too about the Matt Asphalt plant. It's still running without a permit. It was built there in 2018. No one in the state of Illinois, city of Chicago, or Cook County informed the residents of its construction. And mind you, again, the head of the Chicago Environmental Protection Agency takes donations from one of the owners of that asphalt plant.
Yeah. Dana Fairbanks, thanks for joining us, along with Gabo. Dana shares in the chat, I'm sure Pelosi will not pursue another term as speaker. Yeah, I don't think she will, now that she's suddenly recognizes that they're going to start restricting insider trading laws as it relates to Congress. She's made her money. What is there to stick around for if suddenly she's not going to be able to use her insider knowledge to pass to her husband to enrich herself as she has for the past several decades of power?
She made an announcement. I saw the video. She made an announcement that she's seeking re-election.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, for her seat. Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised because I thought there was some talk that she had insinuated that she might be stepping down or retiring. But that's an interesting development we're going to have to follow then. She just won't let go of those reins of power, will she?
No, and I'm willing to bet that the squad will be more than happy to vote her in as Speaker of the House.
Of course, they're not going to force any kind of vote to really expose the monster she is, even though it's pretty much in full view. Salgado, this asphalt plant smell is hard to sleep through. Why are my kids running headlong into the walls until they pass out? E. Heller, thanks for joining. She just announced, he's relating to Pelosi. She just announced she was running for re-election. There's no way she won't try to stay speaker. She is seeking re-election. Okay, well, thanks for that confirmation, everybody. I like this. Unplug the ice cream freezer.
Yes. Good morning. Sunday morning.
Yeah. Well, we've pretty much gotten the full view regarding this particular story with the environmental racism. Let me move on to our next story, which I feel is kind of good news, hopefully. We've reported on this one before. Let's get into it. This comes from Joe Ward at Block Club Chicago. Mental health experts will respond to some emergency calls instead of police as part of a new Far North Side program. Far North Side program. That's my part of town. Why not integrate this in the South and West Sides? I mean, I'm not saying we don't need it here, but it's interesting that they want to, I don't know, focus up here instead of the neighborhoods with more people of color. Am I reading into this too much before I even start the article? I don't know. Trilogy's mental health crisis response. I'm glad they're doing this, but maybe more boots on the ground with these mental health experts in all neighborhoods and communities. Trilogy's mental health crisis response team is part of a statewide program to divert 911 calls for someone experiencing a crisis from police to trained specialists. Now, this is a good idea because, as we know from what we've seen in the past, police tend to jump into these mental health situations and escalate because they're not properly trained. They instantly fear for their lives. They solve the problem with gunfire instead of understanding that someone that's might be encountering a mental health crisis who is really of no danger to them does not deserve to be judged and sentenced and executed on the spot because they fear for their lives. All right, let me get into the article. Rogers Park-based Trilogy rolled out its mental health emergency responder program this month. The First Response Alternative Crisis Team, or FACT, is part of a statewide program providing alternatives to calling 911 for those experiencing mental health issues. Trilogy's team has set up its own crisis hotline. People can call and request first responders trained in mental health services. The program responds to calls in Rogers Park, Edgewater, Uptown, and Westridge, as well as Evanston and Skokie. Trilogy not only responds to mental health emergencies, but it also follows up with people, who had to call emergency responders in the past and works with people to prevent such crises. The most important thing about our program is to look at crisis as a continuum that has a beginning, the peak, middle, as well as follow-up after, said Chris Mayer, Clinical Director of Crisis Service at Trilogy. We're engaging people along that entire continuum. The Crisis Response Team program can be reached at 800-FACT-400. That's 800 F as in Frank, A, C, T as in Tom, 400, 800-FACT-400, which is 800-322-8400. But an easy number to remember if you want to jot it down, if you know anybody that might be in need of this kind of crisis management. 1-800-FACT-400. The first responder service is available 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. It will be scaled up to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily and then to 24/7 by the summer as Trilogy works to hire more mental health specialists. Trilogy's first responder model works much like calling 911. When they get a call to the crisis hotline, a dispatcher A dispatcher determines if the situation is appropriate for mental health first responders, Mayor said. If so, a team of 2 will respond to the scene to offer services and resources. The team then follows up with the person to make sure their needs are being met and offer more help if necessary. That can include peer support and other resources, Mayor said. Some calls might not be deemed crises or emergencies, but Trilogy may still send a team to offer preventative services, Mayor said. If the dispatcher suspects a call is a medical emergency, they will call for paramedics. If the dispatcher believes there is a threat of violence, for example, if a weapon is nearby or someone has allegedly been hurt, they will call for police. Even in those cases where 911 is needed, Trilogy will still send a team to the scene to help oversee the response, Mayor said. And that's good to have another set of eyes on it, a little bit more objective to recount what may or may not go down. We'll still go out and engage with the police or help coordinate the response, he said. The first responder program went live January 10th. So far, it has responded to 14 mental health emergencies in the area, plus worked with more than a dozen referrals to their crisis services, according to Trilogy. Trilogy's first responder effort is born out of a state program started last year to fund local mental health crisis teams throughout the state. Rogers Park's State Representative Kelly Cassidy was instrumental in getting the laws passed. Good on her. Down the road, Trilogy will be incorporated into mental health crisis first responder model that will implement 988 as a nationwide suicide hotline and alternative to calling 911. These programs come as officials seek to cut down on the number of people with mental health issues ending up incarcerated in hospitals or other institutional settings or being the victims of police violence, which is unfortunately, I think what we end up seeing more often than less. Another first responder team under the new state effort has come online on the west side. Chicago also rolled out its own pilot, the Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement Program. Okay, so I think that's what we reported on last year, because it I think has a closer connection to the police department, because as it goes on to say, that pairs police officers with mental health professionals. These are the details in the story that I remember. The pilot is being tested in 2 areas, Auburn, Gresham, and Chatham, and in Lakeview, Uptown, and North Center. Okay, so that's the other program we had talked about previously. The Trilogy teams work with the pilot based in the 19th District, which includes Uptown. The police will refer people to Trilogy or have the Trilogy teams follow up, Mayor said. A lot more stats here, but this is a fantastic resource, said Alderman Maria Haddon of the 49th. We're going to see a lot of growth, long overdue growth in services available for mental health crisis response. I'm grateful that Rogers Park is at least one of the first places that is going to receive these services. This is a real step in the right direction, as I think we commented when we were talking about the program being launched in Auburn, Gresham, and Chatham last year.
Well, I got some good news too, because way back in 2019, we interviewed Maria Haddon as a candidate. And I'm proud to say that all the aldermanic candidates that we've interviewed who were running for office in 2019 won their seats. Dare I say it? Maybe it's because they were on Hardlands Media / Chicago Corner. And so I'm very glad this is happening in the 49th Ward. However, the South and West Side neighborhoods need them desperately too.
Yeah.
We need them like now.
Yeah.
And we can thank Rahm Emanuel for shutting down half of the mental health facilities for doing that.
I'm going to break my no cussing rule. Rahm fuckface Emanuel. It's just the look on his face every time I see that.
Oh, but by the way, he did put out a nice tweet saying, "Goodbye, Chicago. Hello, Tokyo," as he becomes the ambassador of the United States to the nation of Japan.
Good riddance.
No,
damn,
Japan.
I wish I had my Rahm drop in my dashboard. I got rid of it.
Now to our audience, if there's any audience members that lives in Japan, now's the time to get Godzilla to go after Rahm. Like we at Chicago would very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Going into the live chat, scrolling down, related here. Actually, we're going to go into a story about the Big C, Kathy, but she says, did you know the whole North Side is in a COVID hotspot? I guess she's mentioning that as it's related to crisis response. I'm not sure. Okay, so Kathy says Trilogy is 1 block from my house. I can't get services there because I have the wrong kind of Medicaid. I've been trying for 2 years. Well, that's bullshit. I'm sorry you're going through that. I don't know if this program that we're reporting on, if you call their 800 number, 800-FACT-400, would necessarily discriminate against the kind of healthcare you have, Kathy, but maybe you should call them and see if there's anything different now. Talking about mental health, who's been to Chicago Reed Mental Health Center? It's a prison cell and they cut services. Ugh. The only way for me to get services from children is to have a crisis. How does that make sense? You know, Kathy, it doesn't, but if you have to tell them you're having a crisis, work it. I mean, sometimes you just gotta go there. If they're not going to respond for the reasons that they should, look, any health matter that you're having a problem with is going to be a crisis, so you're not wrongfully calling them. Yeah. Really quickly wrapping up in the live chat. Okay, Ertino Diaz. People always talk about mental health issues but didn't solve it. There are those who don't want to solve it because it affects their bottom line. Yeah, true. And Kathy says, agreed. The city has the funds. I could send you a guest plan developed by Dr. Howard Ehrman and Byro Sigcho Lopez. I think you have sent me some stuff, Kathy, I haven't been able to jump into yet. And I'm eagerly awaiting the results of that Freedom of Information Act request that you made regarding some of this information. And we're curious to see if you're going to get stonewalled or if they're going to be forthcoming. All right. So thank you, whatever, man. Let's move on to the next story. As I mentioned earlier, we were going to be getting back to this weasel. I call him a weasel because he is a weasel. Pedro Martinez, Mayor Lightfoot's lapdog in dealing with the teachers union and mismanaging affairs as they related to closing schools for remote learning because he didn't have a fucking plan in place for the 2 years prior to this past month when Omicron spiked. This comes from Block Club Chicago. Facing backlash for abruptly changing how district reports COVID-19 in schools, CPS CEO, Chicago Public Schools has a CEO, Kit. You'd think they were a corporation and really not interested in the vested interests of the children, but just operating as some kind of a for-profit business. So Pedro says it wasn't ill intent at all. District officials said the new way of tracking COVID-19 cases will give a more accurate view of how the pandemic affects schools, but CPS CEO, Little Pedro, acknowledged the unannounced change was confusing. He denies trying to mislead the public about how positive cases are affecting individual schools. The district switched how it reports school-level data after winter break. Instead of tracking all potential coronavirus cases at schools, the tracker now only shows closed cases, okay, or those that have been confirmed by contact tracers. So there's other data there showing potentially more infected students, but they were only showing the closed cases. The district didn't announce this change publicly, befuddling and angering parents who were notified about cases at their children's schools but weren't seeing that reflected on the dashboard. This couldn't have been intentional, Kit, could it?
Well,
they
sadly,
could have been trying to cover their asses and cover things up to support their own narrative, could they?
Well, sadly, this is the Chicago Public Schools, and mind you, anyone that's right now running it is appointed by the mayor. So I'm wondering Mayor Lightfoot's connections to all of this as well.
Little Pedro and Lori Lightweight. At a press conference Tuesday, CPS CEO Pedro Martinez said the district made the change to provide the most accurate data possible to parents, but acknowledged it caused confusion. What doesn't under his watch? Martinez said the district is exploring sharing open COVID-19 cases at the school level again, but he didn't give a timeline for when that would occur. He has no timelines. The goal was to try to make sure we have accurate data. The answer is not, let's close so much of the information, he said. The team is going back and saying, let's try to achieve these goals. For me, the number one question is, what does a parent need to know about their school and about the cases at their school? Since the change came to light, some have accused CPS officials of trying to intentionally undercount cases, particularly as city leaders battled with the Chicago Teachers Union about the safety of in-person learning during the Omicron surge. Martinez and Dr. Allison Arwadi, commissioner of the Chicago Department of Public Health, denied any malfeasance. It wasn't ill intent at all, Martinez. Kit, can I toss it to you as far as that whole struggle was not about COVID and what it was really about?
Okay, let's talk about what's happening with Chicago Public Schools, because again, I'm seeing this on social media, and I want to make it very clear to anyone that's saying, yeah, reopen the schools. Look, obviously COVID-19 has played a role in impacting the educational future of a lot of young people. And yes, I do think the schools should be open, but the thing is, it has to be done in a safe manner. When this strike happened and when the students walked out just a few weeks ago, there was an assumption by the city, by the Chicago Teachers Union members and the city, that there was going to be at least a 2-week grace period of online learning. We covered last month in December of 2021 that there were 100,000 laptops available for Chicago public teachers, school teachers, to pass out to their students. This was all under the assumption that the city was in full agreement with doing this 2-week grace period of online learning. Mayor Lightfoot backed out of it. Mayor Lightfoot then went on a warpath towards the Chicago Teachers Union. The Chicago Teachers Union leadership screwed up in it by buckling down to Mayor Lightfoot. Membership now, and as well as the students, are left wondering what their future is. And the thing is, this ongoing war towards Chicago Public Schools by this mayoral administration is a continuation policy of Rahm Emanuel and Mayor Daley, as well as the city council, to basically privatize Chicago Public Schools, shutting them down, which is another cause of gentrification that's happening all across the city of Chicago. And when these public schools are shut down, that's a death blow to a community. And so, looking at this, COVID-19 has been used as the perfect scapegoat by Mayor Lightfoot by saying, oh, it's safe to reopen, it's safe to reopen, it's safe to open the schools again. Mayor Lightfoot recently got COVID. Her entire administrative staff is now working from home online.
Remotely.
Her kid.
They're working remotely. She's not giving the teachers and the kids the same courtesy to protect their health.
Her kid goes to charter school, is learning remotely. A lot of private schools in the city of Chicago, Catholic schools and charter schools, are working remotely, learning remotely. That option should be available for Chicago public school students as well. But this is an ongoing war that this mayor has had towards CTU, perhaps worse than even Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Daley, because Lightfoot is an extremely petty, vindictive individual.
Even more thin-skinned.
Yeah,
even more thin-skinned.
Yeah, even more thin-skinned. But I will say this too. If you find yourself agreeing with Lightfoot, stop yourself for a minute and say, wait a minute, I'm agreeing with Lightfoot. This is Lightfoot's ongoing war towards public schools. All right? I get that we go back to Sunday to normalcy. And I get that, our students and our young people are drastically struggling right now and are far behind because of these lockdowns. But there's a bigger picture at play here. Lightfoot is not a person to be trusted. She doesn't care about the future of public schools. She doesn't care about the students. She doesn't care about the future of education here in the city of Chicago because she's a hypocrite through and through. I cannot stress that out enough.
Kathy Powers comments, this guy here, he's just following orders. Just like World War II war criminals, I would say.
Yeah, and look, I know
it's an excuse following orders all the time. We're just doing our jobs following orders.
The Nuremberg defense doesn't work. I was just following orders. Yeah, whatever. Look, here's the thing. I also want to say, I know there's a lot of other commentators that have been putting their opinion on what's happening here in Chicago. It's a bigger play. It's not COVID.
Yeah.
This is Lightfoot's war against the public schools. And she's using it as a perfect scapegoat.
And
it's not COVID. Wait, I'm sorry. I got to let this
I'm sorry. I thought you were.
It's not COVID. It's not just about COVID or the lockdowns. There's been a whole incentive by our city government, by previous mayors and this mayor as well, to shut down public schools on the south and west side. It's not about COVID. COVID's a minor character in this. This is about Chicago corruption and abuse of power.
It's a useful tool right now for her to use is what it is.
Yes. Yes, and she's saying, oh, we got to open the schools. Because, look, I understand a lot of kids are struggling, but a lot of the teachers, faculty, and students were under the assumption that there was going to be that two-week grace period of working online. Why the hell, then, did the city of Chicago order 100,000 laptops to have them to be ready, and then Lightfoot just pulled the rug underneath them like that? Lightfoot is a petty, vindictive, thin-skinned individual. Sorry.
No, don't be. Can't add more to that. I mean, you're on fire, and you're absolutely right. Salgado says scapegoat, essential ingredient of a fascist. Yeah. Of fascism. Sorry, my camera was in the way of the screen there. Also in the chat, Gabo Hernandez, Kathy Powers 2022. I'm just saying it's a loose situation, and they should let parents pick if they want to teach online or in class. And yeah, Kathy Powers. Yeah, this is what I was thinking while Kit was raging, justifiably. This is shutting down CPS opens up the opportunity for what, Kit? Privatization, charter schools, private educational corporations and businesses getting rich. Arnie Duncan, who was a big charter school advocate when he was Secretary of Education in Obama's administration, left his position in the midst of a charter school grant scandal. And he's kind of putting feelers out right now because he sees with all of the ill will that Mayor Lightfoot is perpetuating, vilifying Chicago public schools. If he can potentially run against her and win, that's his big issue is charter schools. Because these kids in these other neighborhoods, these South and West Side neighborhoods, are not as valuable to our quote unquote leaders, elected representatives who are only representing their donors, than the neighborhoods that they come from with all the money.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple more comments here. Art Medina, Lightfoot is a great example of just thinking about herself and realizing she's wrong, but can't admit it, and will continue to fight against solutions that don't serve her interests. Yeah, she just doubles down constantly, even in the light of being completely wrong. And Kathy Powers does say, yeah, Arnie Duncan is running for mayor, and I think we're seeing why as a result of this school crisis. And you remember what Mayor Emanuel used to say, never let a good crisis go to waste?
Yeah.
That's what Arnie Duncan's looking at right now.
And sorry, I just have to stress this out enough again, because I'm still seeing the misinformation about this fight that was happening here at CTU and the teachers and the students against Mayor Lightfoot. It's not about COVID. It's not about lockdowns. This is about the future of Chicago public schools. And this mayor broke a promise that she keeps on doing. She keeps on breaking promises. If she can help shut down more Chicago public schools, privatize them, continue on with gentrification, she will. She'll do it. There's a bigger story here. It's about Chicago corruption. COVID is a minor character in this. And all the elected let me take that back. Not elected. All the board members of the Chicago Public Schools are appointed by the mayor of Chicago. The mayor of Chicago is Lightfoot. These people are working for Lightfoot. Okay? Thank you.
True Democracy Now shares, whenever we have a discussion about politics, one thing's obvious, we are frustrated because we have no political power to interfere with the decisions of our politicians. Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier with the 30% voter turnout last Chicago election. Lightfoot is the worm the rich are waiting for.
Yeah.
Kathy says, "Kid, it wasn't in writing." Yeah, she made a lot of promises that she broke. Whatever, yeah. Man. Yeah, we'll clip this segment and let it stand alone on its own so people can share it after the broadcast.
By the way, I just want to add in here too. Like, okay, there's a lot of promises that Lightfoot has made throughout her entire administration. She has made a lot of promises, and she's broken a lot of them too. She's not to be trusted.
No, she completely violated everybody's. I mean, those of us who were fooled, she was a reformer and she would hold the cops accountable. Well, we've said as much as we can. Let me move into our next story. I'm going to say that this story, which we've reported on numerous occasions over the past several weeks, I'm going to close as being our feel-good story because the Center for COVID Control's headquarters has been raided by the FBI. These are the freaks that have been operating pop-up clinics all over the city, not giving test results, botching test results, hiring incompetent staff, using the federal money for these clinics to buy sports cars and brag about it on social media. They are getting their comeuppance, I hope with this raid, because it was the Attorney General of Minnesota that I think filed the first lawsuit against these clowns, which surprised me last week because I'm like, where's Illinois? They're an Illinois corporation. But Illinois did quickly follow suit last week. I think it was Friday when we were reporting on this. So from Kelly Bauer at Block Club Chicago. The company, which has been paid more than $124 million from the federal government and oversees a chain of COVID-19 testing pop-ups, is facing a slew of state and federal investigations. Now, we cannot emphasize enough how many lives, we don't know how many lives were lost as a result of this group's botched testing services. People could have gone in there and gotten a negative and been sick. Their tests may not have ever even been run, and they may have been positive. As we were talking last week, this is so liability. This has just got liability written all over it. I'm wondering what kind of civil suits will follow based on what the feds and other investigators find out now that they are shutting these people down. I hope they said the Center for COVID Control said they were going to shut down temporarily. I don't think they have a fucking choice anymore after all of this stuff came to light from reporting at Block Club and other outlets. So FBI agents searched the suburban headquarters of the Center for COVID Control on Saturday. The company, which has been now here's another thing, they would routinely hide things at their facilities because they were tipped off in advance that investigators were coming over to take a look at things in the past. So I'm wondering how much they may have been able to hide this time if they were tipped off to the agents raiding their headquarters. But the company, which has been paid more than $124 million from the federal government and oversees a chain of COVID-19 testing pop-ups, is facing a slew of state and federal investigations. USA Today reporter Grace Houck was first to report the FBI search. The FBI was conducting court-authorized law enforcement activity in Rolling Meadows, FBI spokeswoman Saban Johnson said in an emailed statement. Department of Justice policy prevents the FBI from commenting on the nature of any investigations that may or may not be occurring. The Illinois Attorney General's office is working with the FBI and other law enforcement partners, spokeswoman Annie Thompson said in an emailed statement. Attorney General Raoul is absolutely committed to protecting residents from those who attempt to profit off the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, Thompson said in an emailed statement. The agency will not comment on ongoing investigations as we work to hold accountable individuals who engage in unlawful conduct. I would also say criminal conduct as far as I'm concerned. My opinion, allegedly. The Center for COVID Control and its lab, Doctors Clinical Lab, are based out of suburban Rolling Meadows. It had more than 300 locations around the United States, including more than 140 in Illinois. For the past several weeks, Centers for COVID Control, what an authentic sounding name. And our colleague Lainey Peterson remarked on that. It's like, how did they even get this federal money with that name? Because it makes them literally sound like a federal or a state agency. So official. The Center for COVID Control. This is a business operating pop-ups. They're not controlling anything. They've been in communication with a number of regulatory and law enforcement agencies regarding the company's operations. A Center for COVID Control spokesman said in a statement, federal law enforcement agents executed a search warrant at the company's main office as part of what appears to be a similar investigation. Although we cannot provide specific comments regarding ongoing investigations, the company intends to fully cooperate with all government inquiries and remains committed to providing the best service possible to our patients so their owner can continue to buy expensive sports cars and brag about it on social media. The company and its lab have come under intense scrutiny in recent weeks. The Minnesota Attorney General's office filed a lawsuit against the company and lab last week. The Illinois Attorney General's office and the Illinois Department of Public Health are investigating them. The Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have cited the lab at the highest level of violations, and other states have ordered the company to close testing sites altogether. My inclusion. The company closed its pop-up locations in Illinois for the foreseeable future after the Illinois Attorney General's office contacted its representatives, that agency announced last week. Complaints have ranged from testing results being delayed or not received at all to results being provided to individuals who were never administered a test, to tests being stored improperly, and staff incorrectly using personal protective equipment and face masks. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Rolls said in a statement last week. Hey, I read last week in the story that people at these pop-up clinics, the employees, were not even wearing fucking masks. They didn't even have the PPE in place. People were standing in lines outside exposed to each other while the staff members were not using gloves. They were giving people the test kits for the people to do the tests on themselves. I went into a COVID clinic, a test clinic up in Skokie last year when I had a scare, even though I was vaccinated, to find out if I had somehow contracted the virus and took me into a back room, did the swab, all professionally handled. These clowns are like throwing the kits out at people, having them do their swabs, taking the kits back, not storing them, throwing them away. I mean, we read all the details in last week's show. Although the company voluntarily suspended operations, my office contacted company officials to demand that the Center for COVID Control immediately stop engaging in any fraudulent or deceptive conduct, particularly with respect to delivery of testing results or billing. On January 13th, Block Club revealed an 81-page report from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that detailed deficiencies and non-compliance at the lab used by the company Doctors Clinical Lab. It was cited for, quote, immediate jeopardy, the most serious infraction, with inspectors noting the lab had made mistakes that led to wasting tens of thousands of PCR tests. Kit, remember public schools can't get tests?
Yeah.
These assholes are wasting them. Workers not correctly processing rapid tests and the lab not properly storing test samples, among other problems. Former employees of the Center for COVID Control have all, I'm just going to call them the clowns for COVID control. This is no Center for COVID Control. Also told Block Club they were told to lie to customers, keep tests in garbage bags, unrefrigerated, around the office, and bill tests to the federal government, even when customers had private insurance. And numerous people from across the United States have said they never got test results from the company. The results were badly delayed or the results didn't make sense. Now, a spokesperson has denied the employees' allegations and said the company has been challenged by the latest surge in cases, but is now focused on now they're focused on training employees and complying with regulations. Not before. Now that they're under the microscope and their boss has been showing off how he spent all the federal money, now they're training employees and complying with. How did these people get licensed to start to open to begin with, Kit? I don't. In this era, how do you open a clinic without getting government approval?
Money and connections. Money and connections.
I guess.
Look, here's the thing, Jerry. On a national level, we have legalized bribery to buy U.S. senators and U.S. House representatives. Yeah. It's just the same at the state and city level as well.
I'm just shocked
here in Chicago.
I'm just shocked in the middle of this public health crisis that is coming close to killing 1 million in this country. I think we're up past 800,000. That any testing site that is so closely linked to what we're talking about every goddamn day, whether it's the schools, whether it's going back to work. You know how hard it is to go pass your fucking driver's test or get licensed for something as an individual. These clowns come along, they get the federal money, they get approval. I don't know what the vetting process was. You would imagine that there's got to be a really, really strict vetting process to make sure that anybody opening up a COVID testing clinic is going to be following the strictest regulations and be under scrutiny by federal agencies, health agencies that are relying on these results to contact trace as well as protect people. But it's like, what? They just filled out an application from a Cracker Jack box or something. And just this is it. I'll wrap up the article really quickly. I mean, I just wanted to we've been talking about this for weeks. So now it seems that there is some resolution that I'm hoping is going to lead to arrests, incarcerations, accountability. Center for COVID Control has acknowledged operational strains and customer service challenges, largely beginning in late 2021 during the Omicron variant surge. It must have been when their CEO was too busy tweeting and going on social media, showing off of his car collection. Spokesperson Russ Keene said in an emailed statement Wednesday, to address those emerging concerns, company leaders are voluntarily called for a 7-day national pause. Well, how gracious of them, of local collection site operations, to reset all operational aspects of the company and ensure accurate testing services continue to be made available to patients across the country. I hope the feds nail their coffins shut with this raid after hopefully what they find that will prove criminal negligence and conduct. Former Center for COVID Control employees said the company struggled to keep up with tests and had issues for months before Omicron was detected in the United States. While the confusion unfolded, the leaders of the company bought a $1.36 million home. Here's what I was alluding to earlier. That is what completely frosts my ass. And posted online about buying cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, including saying they bought a Ferrari that cost $3.7 million. Akbar Syed, who represents himself as a leader of the company, posted that he was able to buy luxury cars thanks to, quote unquote, ready? COVID money. This is blood money, Kit. This is blood money. Experts and officials have also raised questions about the company and its lab's billing practices. Numerous people who got tested through the Center for COVID Control have said they were told to indicate they do not have insurance when registering, which would mean the federal government had to reimburse the lab for those tests. And who knows at what inflated rates that insurance would not approve. Former employees. Okay. Go ahead.
So it's just the thing is when I hear pictures of, oh, wow, nice car, nice clothes, nice watch, nice all that. How'd you get it? COVID money, bro. Hey, bro, COVID money. Wow, awesome. What a jag-off.
Yeah.
What a piece of crap.
This is the guy that should be thrown into this guy should be put behind bars first, forever. Again, how many people died as a result of the not getting accurate or test results back to begin with? I'm sorry. I'm getting really riled up about this, and I'm losing track. Numerous people got tested through the Center for COVID Control have said they were told, okay, the insurance when registering so they can bill the federal government. That's quote unquote very troubling. Jason Pegenkuhl, Minnesota's Attorney General, said that the agency's when the agency's lawsuit was announced. The agency staffers would not comment on if they're conducting a criminal investigation into the company's billing practices. Here's what I will tell you. We are investigating all avenues for accountability, Minnesota State Attorney General Keith Ellison said at the time. Doctors Clinical Lab, the lab for COVID control uses to process tests, makes money by billing patients' insurance companies or seeking reimbursement from the federal government for testing. Insurance statements reviewed by Block Club show the lab has in multiple instances billed insurance companies $325 for a PCR test that they throw away, lose, mismanage, or never actually collect results on. $50 for a rapid test. $50 for collecting a person's sample, and $80 for a quote-unquote supplemental fee. In turn, the testing sites are paid for providing samples to the lab to be processed, said a person formerly associated with the Center for COVID Control. In a January video talking to testing site operator Syed said the Center for COVID Control will no longer provide them with PCR tests, but it will continue supplying them with rapid tests at a cost of $5 per test. The companies will keep making money for the rapid tests they collect. You guys will continue making the $28.50 you're making for the rapid test, Syed said in the video. Anytime there's money flowing between a provider to any kind of patient, it raises concerns about the United States anti-kickback statute, said Jeb White, CEO of Taxpayers Against Fraud, a nonprofit dedicated to fighting fraud. The statute prohibits organizations from receiving money in exchange for things like referring patients or patronage to a lab. At the very least, it is worth a heightened level of scrutiny to see if there is any quid pro quo playing out here, White said. You think? Whew. Let me go to the live chat before we wrap up the show. Yes. The uber wealthy face no consequences. We let them capture our government. Which politician will this place be linked to? That's a really good question. And I wonder if that's ever going to come out. Whichever politician the rich already want to burn. For real, Jerry, not in my lifetime, and I'm older than you. I'm sorry, Kathy, I'm not.
Like when you talk about the corruption, like you said, like you were never,
Yeah. I wasn't able to follow the live chat as I was talking. Have you ever seen a corporation go to prison? Never. They do in other countries. In other countries, they have the corporate death penalty. The corporation is put to death and not allowed to ever go into business again. You'll never see that here. I'd like to see a corporation get the chair or the needle. Thank you, whatever, man. Yep.
Rest in peace, Enron. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Well, because they ripped off rich people.
Yeah.
Like Bernie Madoff. The only reason he went to prison is because he ripped off rich people.
I think in many ways, Bernie Madoff is a hero. He ripped off the rich. Great job, Bernie. Shit.
I don't have faith in federal agencies. No, I don't have complete faith, JR, but we got to hope that there's some honest actors at these federal agencies, especially with these investigations. They cannot avoid investigating this anymore, any less than they were avoiding what happened in New York because of all the Cuomo-sexuals that thought Andrew Cuomo was like the greatest governor in the United States. You know, he wrote that out for his own benefit.
That was a thing.
So what happened to that CEO at Laredo Hospital who gave vaccines to his friends? He resigned. So what? Mitt Romney coined the term corporations are people too. Art Matina. Yeah, no one will be held accountable. This is really just another way to screw people over. His father was right. I have faith in federal agencies. I'm unfortunately wrong. I don't have complete faith, JR, but I don't know, man. What are the solutions? I joke here. Torches, pitchforks, guillotines, when? Yeah, if we don't have faith in some people in these federal agencies, I don't know what we're here talking about or complaining about. If we don't have any more control over this, if there aren't any solutions. If it wasn't so land of the lost, end of the road, this corruption could drive a woman to vigilante justice for shits and giggles. I like that idea very much. All right. So listen, there's a lot of outrage in the live chat. I agree. I'd love to be able to share everything on screen here, but we are kind of coming to the end of the show. We've gone an hour and a half. I never worry about going long, but I don't want to hold up Kit, and I do think that we've covered all of this as best we could.
Hey, you're not holding me up. I'm glad we're having this show.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't want to be presumptuous though. What are some of the other comments? Yes, Salgado, I'm very delighted to learn that other countries actually do execute these corporations. I know what's holding us up here. Corporations are overlords. These are the corporate states of America, right? This is not the United States. These are the corporate states of America. And our overlords own our quote unquote representatives because our representatives are only doing the bidding of those that donate to them. Simple as that. Oh my God, this should be sung about. I'm going to look up the stories to write song lyrics about these capitally punished corpses. Can a politician or a proper leader lobby for a law that makes shit like this illegal? You don't think so? They could. They don't want to, though. All of these three-letter agencies answer to corporate rule. FBI, CIA, don't forget the SEC. They all belong to the oligarchs. Salgado, the statutes are impotent without oversight, accountability, enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I wanted to feel better at the end of the show, having shared this article about the fact that these fuckers have been raided and are going to be investigated. But when it comes down to how did they even operate and get licensing to begin with, and are they really going to suffer any repercussions since companies are not shut down, or is this asshole running the company going to go to jail? Are they going to seize his? They should seize all of his cars. They should seize that home. That's what should be done for starters.
Well, I mean, let's face it. He's already there's a lot of questionable. There is evidence out there of clear illegal activities happening. Where's the mayor? Where's the city council? Where is everybody? Come on, do your jobs. Why do we have to point it out to you when you should be doing your jobs to protect the citizens? Do your jobs. Come on, cops. There you go. Come on. Go get them. Go get them.
Yeah. I'm going to close the show with Kathy Powers. Where's Oreo and Pegleg? Oreo is to my right here, taking a little nap. I think Pegleg is somewhere in the ether. I don't know when Pegleg will return. Probably sometime soon as it relates to a topic that is relevant. But I did want to close the show with Kathy's comment here. Hashtag revolution. Yesterday, now, tomorrow. Bring it on. And with that said, Kid, anything else that you want to share from HLM land, 99 Perspectives, before I bid our loyal viewers good night?
Glad of all the work. Glad seeing all the good work happening here at Chicago Corner. Heartlands Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. Had a great time on Lady Peterson's show. No chalice required. Awesome time there. And if you want to learn more about the 99 Perspectives Studio, go to 99perspectives.tv. Otherwise, Jerry, close us out.
Let me close us out. Hey, everybody, until we return on Friday, please be careful this week. Stay vigilant. Watch out for each other. And most importantly, remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Stay safe this week, everybody. And I look forward to joining you again on Friday with whatever new stories there are to report. Kit, thanks again. Good night, everybody.